I had a purpose. I wanted to be one of the best basketball players to ever play. And anything else that was outside of that lane, I didn't have time for.
At what age did that goal become crystal clear that that's what you
I made that deal with myself at 13 years old.
At 13 years old?
13 years old. That's the
you
deal
were
I made.
crystal clear about it?
Crystal clear.
And where did inspiration come from?
The love of the game. The love of the game, the challenge. Like, I would watch Magic play, I'd watch Michael play, and I would see them do these unbelievable things, and I'd say, you know, can I get to that level? I don't know, but let's find out. Let's find out. And so that curiosity to see where I could push this thing led me down that path, I think. Basketball for me was the most important thing. So everything I saw, whether it was TV shows, whether it was books I read, people I talked to, everything was done to try to learn how to become a better basketball player. Everything. Everything. And so when you have that point of view, then literally the world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
The world becomes your library to help you improve your craft, better your craft.
Yes, indeed.
So because you know what you want, the world's giving you exactly the information you need to become better at it.
Because you know what you're looking for. Yeah.
So would you, when you size your peers up, how'd you size your peers up? Like if you're sizing people, I'm talking you're 13 years old, you're sizing peers up, what lens are you looking through your peers?
So at 13 years old, I had a, I had a kill list. So, you know, they used to do these rankings. It was Street and Smith basketball rankings. And I was nowhere to be found because I was like 6'4", scrawny, like 160 pounds soaking wet. So I was like 57 on the list. And so I will look at 56, 55, all the way up to number 1, who these players are, what club teams they played for. So when we go on an AAU travel circuit, I got to hunt them down, right? And so that became my mission in high school, is to check off every other person, all those 56 other names, hunt them down and knock them down.
Say I'm one of the guys on that list ahead of you, and we play. What are you doing to get a feel? Is your mind like, are you asking, let me see if this guy's better than me in this side and this side and this side? Or are you just going saying, I'm going to kill this guy?
Well, it depends what year. So like at 13 years old, you know, I played the longer game because my game wasn't about being better than you at 13. It was to be better than you when, you know, the chips are really on the line. So when we played at 13, I would size you up and see what your strengths and weaknesses are. How do you approach the game? Are you silly about it? Are you goofy about it? Are you good at it just because you're bigger and stronger than everybody else? Right? Or is there actually thought and skill that you put into it? Right? And when I'd play to my weaknesses. I wouldn't play to my strengths. I played to my weaknesses. Because when you're playing summer basketball, there's so many games. So there's not a lot of skill work being done. So when are you going to get better? Right? When you're playing in competition situations, you're only playing to your strengths. Why? Because you want to win. Right? So what I would do, I was work on the things during those games that I was weak at. Left hand, pull-up jump shot, post game. Right? So I have a strategy. And so then fast forward to when I'm 17 and my game is completely well-rounded, and that player at 13 that I saw at 13 is still doing the same shit at 17, now you got a problem.
That's right.
You got a problem.
And you saw that.
You got a problem.
And by the way, let me ask you, so that's high school. You go into the league. When you're going into the league, you're going with a lot of guys that were, you know, same age, you know, same class as you were going in.
Yeah.
Were you sizing those guys up the same exact way as you did in high school?
I did, but you know, in the NBA, it was actually easier because what I found in the NBA is a lot of guys played for financial stability. And when they came to the NBA, they got that financial stability. So therefore, the passion and the work ethic and the obsessiveness was gone. So I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be like taking candy from a baby. No wonder Mike wins all these fucking championships. The players that had that passion but weren't willing to commit their entire lives to doing that, right? It's a choice, right? You have other things, you have family, you have all these other things that you have to do. The game can't really be your number one priority. And so I was just looking at that like, man, this is gonna be fun.
In the muse, you said, I knew you couldn't do what I was doing because I was obsessed. I'm paraphrasing. And then you said, whether it's friends, relationship, it didn't matter. It was all basketball.
Yeah.
If I'm buddies with you from high school, if I'm a cousin of yours, What happened to our relationship? How did that gravitate when you went into the league and you're determined to become the greatest, or you're determined to become one of the greatest? What happens to our relationship?
Oh, it suffers.
It does suffer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you understood that. You were okay
yeah.
with that.
Well, yeah. And the people that love you, like friends and family, like they know that about you.
Got it.
So they let you be you. And when you reconvene, you know, you pick back up where you left off. But make no mistake about it, everything in between is lost, right? So those long-term relationships, the commitment of time of, taking vacation. Like I see a lot of players take vacations with other players that are close friends. And we'll just take vacations just to take vacations, or just hang out just to hang out. Like I never did that. But
Why,
it was a
why not
choice.
though? Why didn't you do that?
Well, because when I retire, I didn't want to have to say, I wish I would have done more. I don't want that. You know?
Okay, so you come in, it's very powerful what you just said. Some of your peers were in it for the money, so they got the money. Okay, great. Buy a house for my mom, dad wanted that car, get this, get that, have fame, go to different cities, I'm partying, I'm doing all this other stuff. Who were some of the guys that you saw and you watched that weren't just driven by the money? Were there some names that you looked at and says, these three guys are as crazy as I am?
At the time, I deal with what I've referred to as Goat Mountain. I went to Goat Mountain and I talked to Magic, Michael, Bird, Hakeem Olajuwon, Jerry West, Oscar Robinson, Bill Russell. You know, so I would talk to them. What did you do? What were your experiences? Michael in particular, he's become my big brother. He's been my big brother since I first came in the league. And what was that process like? So I went to them and started understanding the ins and outs of the game, and you know how they approach things and their level of detail and obsessiveness, and that's what I did. High school, year before, we played 35 games, max, right? Week in between, spaced out, plenty of time to rest. In the NBA, it's back to back to back to back to back to back to back. I didn't have the legs. So you look at the shot, every shot was online, but every shot was short. Right? I got to get stronger. I got to train differently. The weight training program that I'm doing, I got to tailor it for an 82-game season so that when the playoffs come around, my legs are stronger and that ball gets there. So I look at it with rationale and say, okay, well, the reason why I shot air balls is because my legs aren't there. I go, well, next year they'll be there. That was it.
Done.
Nobody
in its history of coaching had your level of work ethic. I mean, you hear so many guys tell stories about your work ethic.
Yeah.
What was really your work ethic like, and for how long did you stay disciplined?
Well, I mean, every day. I mean, since 20 years. I mean, it was an everyday process, and trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses. For example, jumping ability. Man, my vertical was a 40, it wasn't a 46 or a 45. My hands are big, but they're not massive. Right? So you got to figure out ways to strengthen them so your hands are strong enough to be able to palm a ball and do the things that you need to do. Quickness, I was quick, but not insanely quick. I was fast, but not ridiculously fast. Right? So I had to rely on skill a lot more. I had to rely on angles a lot more. I had to study the game a lot more. And but I enjoyed it though. So like from the time I can remember when I started watching the game, I studied the game, and it just never changed. The game itself it's a complicated answer. So there are very tactical things in terms of footwork and geometry of the court. So you're looking at the court and looking at the 45-degree angles that the court is shaped in and how it needs to operate. That's one component to it. So looking at spots on the floor where you can increase your efficiency, right? You can be on the wing, but there's a certain spot on the wing that improves your angle to drive to the basket, right? So that sort of stuff. Footwork of the opposition, looking at the emotion of the opposition, their tendencies, their weaknesses, and all that stuff. Understanding the momentum of the game, how to create momentum shifts, where momentum shifts come from, all this sort of stuff. And then studying outside of that, right? Looking at different industries, looking at conductors, looking at writers, looking at actors and how they get into character, and then how do they keep themselves in that mental space. So looking at different industries, looking at nature itself, and learning from that and how you can incorporate that into the game. Man, It was a lot of studying.
What's your process for making a decision? Do you have a flow of how you go through making a decision?
Depends on the decision. Depends on the decision. If we're talking about, a basketball decision where you read a certain coverage or something like that, I mean, a lot of that comes from the pre-work and understanding what their defensive package is and how to put teammates in certain situations. So, for example, if you look at players nowadays that are charged with taking game-winning shots, making game-winning decisions, and you look at the play and then you look at it and say, okay, well, that shooter was there, the double team came, and, the player couldn't do anything but pass the ball, right? Well, that's because they didn't do the pre-work, right? So when you do the pre-work, you understand, okay, this team in a situation likes to run a double team from this particular angle. All right, so I'm going to clear that side out, force the double team to come from a different angle, move myself to a space on the floor where it's going to take a long time for the double team to come, and now I can circumvent the double team and get to a place on the floor where I can knock down a shot or get to the basket. So it's all that pre-work.
Decision, when I say decision, if you're looking at somebody that you're sizing up, or if you're looking at somebody to go into business with, or if you're looking at a big investments you got to make, what is the decision-making process there? Do you call, first you do your own research, you take this much time, you call an advisor, is there a system you follow?
It's pretty simple for me. It's do you understand the business? Is it a business that you can help in some form or fashion? What are the barriers of entry to that business? And then the entrepreneurs themselves, the company itself, right? Do they have a culture that you believe is sustainable? Are these leaders people that you believe in? Are they people that are obsessives? And in turn, have they created a culture of obsessiveness? So I tend to look at those 4 factors, and that's it.
What's the least amount of sleep you played a game on? Is there a story where it's like, no one knows about, where you went and played a game and it was so insane for whatever reasons?
No sleep.
You played a game with zero sleep.
Zero sleep. Zero sleep. It's like, kids, Natalia had a certain, health situation or what have you, and you're staying up all night, and then you got to go out and perform because fans don't know. Teammates don't know, nor do they care, nor should they, that you've been up all night. You got to perform, right? And so you just got to go to work, man.
That's respect.
That's
respect. And I think one of the things for some, if you follow basketball or not, that you and Mike had in common is that it wasn't, hey, I'm going to take 8 games off this year to try to stay healthy. The mindset of going, like that to you is comical, right? To do that.
What the hell is that, man? I don't know what that is. That's crazy. It's your job to be in shape. It's your job to be strong enough to perform at that level every single night. And as a competitor, I'm not ducking shit. Like, it's not, oh my God, my back hurts, I'm sore, we got to play Vince Carter and Toronto Raptors tonight. We actually had this happen. We had a game against Toronto in 2000, and Vince was tearing the league up. My back was jacked. But like the perception of that, like, what? Kobe's missing the game against Toronto and Vince Carter because my back was really spasming. But people will be like, what? Oh, he's ducking Vince. Excuse me? No, I don't think so. So I would be in the layup line like, okay, there's a lot of days where, you can rest and recover. Today ain't one of them. Your back can bother you any other day. That shit ain't bothering me today.
Wow.
He gonna have to see me today. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Alter ego. Sometimes we are so worried about what other people think about us. It's like, oh my gosh, what if they think I'm crazy? What if they think I'm over obsessive or competitive? And what if this is like, you're too much? This is just not healthy for you to be thinking this way, right?
Yeah.
How did you get your mindset into this alter ego to be comfortable being Black Mamba? Like, how did that happen?
It's a good separation for me, emotionally, to be able to put myself in a place where at practice or when I'm training or during games, I switch my mind to something else. I switch my mode into something else, right? For me, it's the equivalent of Maximus Decimus Meridius in Gladiator picking up the dirt, smelling the dirt. It's go time, right? So that was my mental switch. It was like an actor getting ready for a film. You got to put yourself in that cage. When you're in that cage, you are that character. And then when you leave there, it's something completely different. But when I'm in that cage, bro, don't fucking touch me. Don't talk to me. Just leave me alone. There used to be certain games, like, for like certain key games. I don't think I've ever said this before. This kind of makes me seem very psychotic, but whatever. I used to play the Halloween theme song over and over and over in my headphones.
Pre-game. Seriously.
Seriously. And it was important that it was Michael Myers because the mask itself was void of emotion. Void of emotion. It has
That's
nothing to do with
psychotic at the
pressure, it has
highest
nothing to
level.
do with hype, has nothing to do with camaraderie. It's stone cold killer. And I would listen to that song over and over and over to get that's when you know you better run because
That's what a lot of people did.
yeah,
It's probably coming out. You know,
it's gonna be a
eyes
tough
tell the
night.
Story.
Yeah.
In sports, you have to apply it in the here and now. I mean, you're faced with challenges moment to moment. You're faced with pressures and anxiety and communication or the lack thereof and all this other stuff. Like, it's in the moment. So you have to live it. And when you practice those things, you become better at it. But I just feel like in this day and age, our children have become less imaginative about how to problem solve. And parents and coaches have become more directive in trying to mandate or give orders or teach kids how to think and teach kids how to behave versus and tell them how to behave versus teaching them how to behave.
Who was your greatest teacher growing up? Because you had an interesting childhood, being in Italy for a while, coming back to Philadelphia, I think it was.
Yeah.
Who was the greatest teacher for you in those early days?
It's funny, man. I had a lot of them. You know, my parents were great. You know, growing up, you know, they instilled in me the importance of imagination, of curiosity, and understanding that, okay, if you want to accomplish something, I'm not just going to sit here and say, yes, you can do whatever you want. Yes, you can, but you have to also put in the work to get there, right? So they taught me that at a really early age, man. And when you grow up as a kid thinking that the world is your oyster and all things are possible if you put in the work to do it, you know, you grow up having that fundamental belief.
Yeah.
Playing, and I don't score 1 point the entire summer.
Really?
Not one.
How old were you?
11, 10, 11.
And you're playing against other 10, 11-year-olds?
Uh-huh.
Or you didn't score once?
Not one.
Were you in the game?
I was in the game
How did you not score?
because I was terrible.
Really?
Yeah. That
At 10,
happened.
11 years old, you were that terrible.
Awful. I mean, and I had these big knee pads on because I was growing really fast. I had socks all the way up here, and I had like the high top
Skinny,
fade,
yeah.
like skinny as hell. And I scored not a free throw, nothing, not a lucky shot, not a breakaway layup, 0 points. And I remember crying about it and being upset about it. And my father just gave me a hug and said, listen, whether you score 0 or score 60, I'm going to love you no matter what.
Wow.
Now that is the most important thing that you can say to a child. Because from there I was like, okay, that gives me all the confidence in the world to fail. I have the security there. But to hell with that, I'm scoring 60. Let's go.
Right.
And from there I just went to work. And I stayed with it and I kept practicing.
Is that when you think the mentality of hard work started to come in for you at that age, when you failed so miserably, I guess, that summer?
I think that's when the idea of understanding a long-term view became important. Because I wasn't going to catch these kids in a week. I wasn't going to catch them in a year, right? So that's when I sat down and said, okay, this is going to take some thought, all right? What do I want to work on first? All right, shooting. All right, let's knock this out. Let's focus on this. Half a year, 6 months, do nothing but shoot. Right after that, all right, creating your own shot, and then you focus. So I started creating a menu of things. When I came back the next summer, I was a little bit better, right? And
A menu being like, I've got my jump shot from 15, I've got my
I got my jump shot
fadeaway,
from 15, I got my 3-point shot, like just open shots, not miss open shots, right?
Right.
Be able to shoot it with speed because those kids are so much more athletic.
Yeah.
And then the next summer I came back, I was a little better. And the summer came back,
You
the
scored.
next summer I was a little better. I scored.
Yeah,
You know, it
you-
wasn't much,
Right.
but I scored.
And this
you know?
is 12, 13.
12, 13. And then 14 came around, back half of 13, 14 years old, and then I was just killing everyone. And it happened in 2 years. And I wasn't expecting it to happen in 2 years, but it did because what I had to do was work on the basics and the fundamentals. While they relied on their athleticism and their natural ability. And because I stick to the fundamentals, it just caught up to them. And then my body, you know, my knees stopped hurting. I grew into my frame, and
And then your athleticism, once you have the fundamentals,
Exactly.
the hard work, the mindset, and you tack on the athleticism, it's game over.
Then it was game over.
Wow. So from 13, you're good, average still?
I was good. I was good.
Okay.
And then about the end of my third, like right when I was turning 14, I became the best player in the state.
At 14.
At 14.
So from 12 to 14, you went from scoring 0 to being the best in the state of all ages.
Yep. But it's simple. Like if you do the math on this, right? Like if you're thinking about how often kids are playing, right? And I tell this to my daughter and my daughter's team as well that I coach. So it's a simple thing of math. If you want to be a great player, if you play every single day, 2-3 hours, every single day, over the course of a year, how much better are you getting? Most kids will play maybe, an hour and a half, 2 days a week.
Right.
Do the math on that. It's not going to get it done. It's not going to get it done, right? So if you're obsessively training 2-3 hours every single day over a year, over 2 years,
You're to accelerate.
you make quantum leaps, man.
Just doing a summer camp for 2 weeks, you see a difference. I remember playing basketball.
You
growing up.
you
It's
see
like
it.
You get a lot better, and you come back
Yes.
more confident playing on the playground with guys who used to beat you.
Yeah, and I tell the parents on my team, I said it's when I say your kids are going to become great basketball players, and they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's not. There's no
Math.
That's it.
Show up every single day.
Show up every single day, do the work.
But you have this Mamba mentality. Your book's coming out soon, and how did you develop this? There's a beautiful story that I love from Jay Williams. I don't know if you remember Jay Williams, where he did an interview a while back, and he talked about how when he played you, I think the first time or one of the first times he played against you, he was like, I'm going to show up so early to the court to warm up and practice like before anyone.
Yeah.
And he shows up at the court. I don't know if it was in LA or where it was, and you were the only one there. Already shooting free throws, already doing your fundamentals. And he goes, I'm going to stay here until Kobe leaves. And then he was like, gosh, an hour and a half, 2 hours later,
I got to go.
I'm tired. And Kobe's still shooting free throws, scoring, like just going over the fundamentals. And he goes, and then we played that game and you were lights out. And he came up to you afterwards and said, like, dude, why were you in there for so long? And how'd you do it? And he said, this is what he said, I knew you were watching and I wanted to show you that I was willing to outwork you.
Right.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this.
I remember it.
You remember, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was so powerful that you have this mindset, but how did you develop that? I don't know if that's what you call the Mamba mindset, but how did you develop that? And when did it start?
It started in middle school and high school because a lot of the kids that I was playing against were inner city kids.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at me as if, okay, this kid's soft, right? He's from the suburbs of Philadelphia. His father played in the NBA, played professionally.
He's got it easy.
Born on second, all this other stuff, right? And so they felt like they could try to be physical or try to intimidate me and do all this other stuff, which they couldn't, right? But now I'm saying, okay, well, you're trying to attack me. How am I going to attack you? How can I mentally figure out ways to break you down? How can I show you that, no, I have the edge, right? And so that's when it first started for me, is figuring out how to get the upper hand on an opponent that way.
And what would you do to mentally break people down then?
Well, I mean, we used to have an All-American camp that I used to go to, and at the time when I first showed, I was a sophomore, and one of the things I would do is while everybody would be at the cafeteria, eating and doing all sort of stuff, I'd just go back to the gym.
They'd be resting, eating.
And they'd see me leave, right? But now you're in a tough position because you're like, okay, I want to be like, I'm following the kid to go work out, but I know he's working, he's up early, and he's doing all this other stuff. And so that was my way of showing them, I may be from the suburbs, but you're not going to outwork me.
Wow.
And I'm mentally going to.
Did someone teach you that? Was that just a thing that you decided, like, I'm going to get in people's minds?
I think it's just figuring out ways to be better and to win the game. And it started as a defense mechanism because they were the ones talking trash to me, and kid from Italy, blah blah blah, and all this other stuff. And it was like, okay, I can't let them. I got to defend myself here, right? And then it became okay. I'm pretty witty. I can say some pretty witty things.
And in Italian.
And in Italian. Yeah.
It's interesting, I never was physically gifted to an extreme level. I was always really good, but I was never like the fastest or biggest or strongest. But I remember my edge was, I'm not going to go party and I'm not going to drink alcohol.
Right.
So I've never been drunk still because I was like, I need every edge when guys were out partying late at night who were better than me and drinking and showing up hungover. I was like, I'm going to be more focused and have clearer vision. And but I wasn't waking up at 4 a.m. like you. So
well, that's interesting because like when I played, one of the things that I had to learn is how to get the best out of my teammates.
Yeah.
And most people think it's a simple thing, pass them the ball.
You know, but that's not how you make guys better. You have to really affect their behavior.
How do you do that?
So, I would tell guys, we got back-to-backs. I don't care if we're in Miami. I don't care if we're in a great city of Chicago. You can't go out. We got to get rest. Right?
Back-to-back games.
Back-to-back games,
Yeah.
right? Monday, Tuesday. You play Monday and play again Tuesday. Guys aren't going to listen, right?
Right.
So a few times, say, all right, we'll all go out. We'll go out together.
Really?
I'll drink with you, right? But the next morning, I'm banging on your door at 5 in the morning. Let's go.
They're not getting
Where are
that.
we going? I hung out with you. Now you come hang out with me.
Wow.
This is what we do. All right, let's go. And we're at the gym. We're working out, right? We hit the bus. We go to practice. We play that night.
And they're dead.
And they're dead. And they're like, oh, lesson learned.
Really?
Lesson
So
learned.
take them out once.
Listen, if you're going to do that. But don't let that compromise what we're here to do.
Right.
This is why we're here. This is why you're here in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
And if we're going to win a championship, we have to have that championship mentality
That's it.
and work ethic.
That's it. So you got to show them, no, Kobe can do that and still has the energy to get up and do this. So either I got to meet that same energy or I got to keep my butt in my
Go to
room.
bed early, yeah.
Listen, I don't deal with people that don't commit at that level, but then act as if they do. I don't deal with that.
What's the least amount of sleep you played a game on?
No
Is
sleep.
there a story where it's like, no one knows about, where you went and played a game and it was so insane for whatever reasons?
No sleep.
You played a game with zero sleep.
Zero sleep. Zero sleep. It's like, kids, Natalia had a certain, health situation or what have you, and you're staying up all night, and then you got to go out and perform because fans don't know. Teammates don't know, nor do they care, nor should they, that you've been up all night. You got to perform, right? And so you just got to go to work, man.
That's respect.
That's
That's
it.
respect. And I think one of the things for some, if you follow basketball or not, that you and Mike had in common is that it wasn't, hey, I'm going to take 8 games off this year to try to stay healthy. The mindset of knowing, like that to you is comical, right, to do that.
What the hell is that, man? I don't know what that is. That's crazy. It's your job to be in shape. It's your job to be strong enough to perform at that level every single night. And as a competitor, I'm not ducking shit. Like, it's not, oh my God, my back hurts, I'm sore. We got to play Vince Carter and Toronto Raptors tonight. We actually had this happen. We had a game against Toronto in 2000, and Vince was tearing the league up. My back was jacked. But like the perception of that, like what? Kobe's missing the game against Toronto and Vince Carter because my back was really spasming. But people will be like, what? Oh, he's ducking Vince. Excuse me? No, I don't think so. So I would be in the layup line like, okay, there's a lot of days where, you can rest and recover. Today ain't one of them. Your back can bother you any other day. That shit ain't bothering me today.
Wow.
He gonna have to see me today. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Just going to sit around.
What does losing feel like to you?
It's exciting
Why is it exciting?
because it means you have different ways to get better. There's certain things that you can figure out that you can take advantage of, right? Certain weaknesses that were exposed that you need to shore up, right? So it was exciting. I mean, it sucks to lose,
Right.
but at the same time, there are answers there if you just look at them.
Because you get the information from losing more than from winning, probably.
Yeah. I mean, the answers are there when you win too. You just have to look at them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a constant process. It's exciting when you win. It's exciting when you lose because the process should be exactly the same, whether you win or you lose. As you go back and you look and you find things that you could have done better, you find things that you've done well that worked. You figure out how did they work, why did they work, how can you make them work again.
Yeah.
And but the hardest thing is to face that stuff. That's a really, really tough challenge.
You mean face it, you mean look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, this is how I showed up, or this is what happened. And
I'll give you an example. So Katie Lou Samuelson is one of the best college basketball players in the country. She plays at UConn. She's going to be a senior.
Right now.
Yeah. And she's from Huntington Beach out here by us. And so she comes down and she works with some of my girls on the team and she helps coach. And they just had a really tough season last year where they lost to Notre Dame in the final.
That's right.
Really tough.
First loss in years, right?
Yeah. And so I asked her, I said, have you watched the Notre Dame game? She was like, no. I said, well, why not?
said, I don't want to watch that. I said, I know you don't, but you're going to play Notre Dame this year, yeah? Yeah. What's the chances you see him again in the final? I said, well, you'll probably see him again. I said, well, you can't show up and play them without knowing why you lost that one, right? So, you know, the mistakes that you've made in that game, you have to do the hard stuff and watch that game and study that game to not make those mistakes over and over again just because you weren't brave enough to face it. So she came down to the office. I brought her down to the office and we sat down, we watched that game together.
Wow.
Right? And you gotta deal with it.
Face it.
You gotta deal with it. Face it, learn from it.
Wow, it must have been cringing for her to just be like, oh, replaying like we could have won, all these things.
That's exactly it, isn't it?
If I just did that one thing,
That's exactly
if I
right.
didn't get that foul, if I was scored that layup.
That's exactly right. You're looking and say, oh, there's the mismatch. Oh, there's the gap. You know, and all those little things, and it sucks. But you don't want to have that feeling again, do you? Right? So you got to really study it, face it, and not to say you'll win the next time you face it, but at least you'll give yourself a better chance.
Yeah.
4 years later, in 2000, I made my first Olympic team and was fifth. Came back from that pretty disappointed. I wanted to come home with a medal, not a piece of paper that said I competed.
Yeah.
So I used that as motivation. And 6 months after my first Olympics, I broke my first world record. Eat, sleep, swim. That was literally it. I guess for an extended period of time, 5 or 6 years, I went every single day without missing a single day. I never got sick. I was in the water on Christmas, birthday, holidays, everything. It didn't matter. And the thought process behind that was, when you take a day off in the sport of swimming, it takes you 2 days to get back to where you were. So when somebody is taking off on a Sunday, they're not back till Tuesday from where they were on Saturday. So I have that many days ahead of them. I was putting all of that, you know, we would call it putting it in the bank. We were storing all of this good work that we were doing, this hard work that we were doing, continuous hard work, and it was going to pay off at some point.
Yeah.
So, you know, we just kind of kept grinding. So I was swimming probably 80 to 100,000 meters a week, 10 practices a week, working out of the pool, 3 different sessions. So core was something that we really worked on and did a ton of body weight stuff. Yeah, I mean, it was, I was fully engaged in everything that I was doing, and everything around my life was based around the pool. You know, if something wasn't going to help me in the pool, then I wasn't doing it. It wasn't about really like, I mean, I guess it wasn't about chasing the medal record or this or that. It was doing the best that I could. And honestly, like I performed and I trained, I guess I trained harder than anybody else. You know, I was doing things that people dreamt about doing, you know, in the water, training wise, or I don't know. It was just, I was putting myself in a position to have the chance to win a medal. Staring at the black line on the bottom of a swimming pool for 3 to 5 hours a day really isn't the most enjoyable thing, and it's not the easiest thing to do. But you know, I think when you have a goal that's important enough to you, nothing will stand in your way, and that's what it was. You know, I wanted to accomplish those goals, and I was going to make it happen. You know, for me, it was trying to. I mean, the process. I guess that's what it was. We were figuring out the process of what we had to do in order to stand up and be able to compete against the best in the world. So yeah, it was just the process of it all. So for me, it was easy to kind of push through it because I wanted it so bad. You know, I mean, I had these quotes, I had these goals, I had, you know, all of these things taped in my locker that I saw every day, you know, when I got out of bed. And I think the biggest thing is during the days where I didn't want to go, or I was tired, I was sore, this, that, or the other, I still went. Because if I'm gonna go to practice and I'm gonna get 10%, 20%, 30% out of that day, it's better than getting 0. So I was always taking steps forward. And that's why everything worked out. I swam for over 20 years, and I can guarantee you there was probably 100 days where I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to stay in the pool or stay in my bed and not get out. But those were the days where you have to. You have to get up and do something, because I think that's really what separates the good from the great. The greats do things when they don't always want to do them. I wanted to do something that nobody else has ever done in the sport. That's what made me hungry.
Yeah.
You know, if I got 1 medal and I swam an okay time, I want to go faster. That's, I mean, you know, like that's just what it was. Like I was chasing times because I knew that if I could get to certain times, there wasn't anybody else in the world that could do that time. So when we talk about competitors, I knew my competitors better than they knew themselves. I swam so many races and so many events. So I was always conscious of what the other athletes were doing in the world in those events because I was going to have a time where I was going to swim against them. And we can talk back to the mental part of it.
Yes.
When these things come on, when these bright lights come on, not many people can step up to that challenge. So if you have a person like that, then there are ways that you can kind of expect that they're not even going to be in the race. So it's, I don't know, it was just something that my coach and I were always very aware of. And we kind of knew how they swam their races. You know, like I knew, you know, the 100 fly, for example, in 2008. I knew that Michael Kavik was going to be out a second faster than me. And I knew if I could go 24.0 on the first 50, I had a chance to win. I was 24.01 at the first 50, and I won by 100th. So we kind of knew what to expect. My losses were the best things that could happen to me. Because you know, when I had a loss, it was because I wasn't doing what I needed to. I wasn't preparing myself the best way that I could. So I got what I deserve. And I think that's the great thing in sports. You know, as much as you want to prepare or not prepare, you're going to get the results that you deserve no matter what. So, you know, if you're going to do something, you might as well give 100%. Your mind is such a powerful tool, right? So you use it to your advantage. And you know, I think as a kid growing up, I was taught to take the word can't out of my vocabulary. Because if you say the word can't, you've made your mind up. Do something else. You know, like if I say I can't get out of bed this morning, I'm not going to get out of bed. So I think just those negative words, I think, were something that I took out that helped me believe that whatever I put my mind to, I could achieve. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's like we were saying, like we tried to keep it simple as you possibly can do it. Because the more you start complicating things, it's just never going to go well. So that my coach was able to, you know, kind of put me through these little tests and practice that would help me mentally prepare myself. You know, whether it's breaking my goggles on purpose so I can't swim with goggles during a race. So then I have to figure out a way to stay calm and to stay relaxed. Or when I do visualizing, I spend a ton of time visualizing on how the race could go, how I want the race to go, and how I don't want the race to go. So I'm already prepared. For whatever happens, I can accept it and move past it. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we all need to understand is that it's okay to not be okay. You know, like we're human beings. We're going to go through ups and downs. We're going to have struggles. It's the way of life. You know, if life was easy, then it wouldn't be as fun. You know, so it's you know, we kind of have to have those ups and downs to really be able to learn and grow. And for me, my downs were, like as I said, some of the scariest moments in my life. But you know, for a long time, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror because I saw myself as strictly a swimmer, not as a human being. And that's scary. So for me, I had to find out whatever it was that I was looking for and find out who I was. So for me, during that process in 2014, I was able to really see and like myself the way I am. And I liked who I saw in the mirror. And for me, I still have days where I go through struggles. I still have depression spells. I still deal with anxiety. It's something that's going to be a part of my life forever. And it's what makes me me. So I've accepted that. And honestly, I just try to grow and to learn from each experience, but prepare myself even more than I ever have before. Because as you said, there are so many other people who are finally opening up and saying that they're going through a difficult time or they need a break. It's real, you know, and it's people showing their human side. For me, I think the biggest thing that I always said to myself is I wanted to finish my career on my terms. That was it. So for me, I felt in 2012 that I didn't really do that. I didn't give myself the opportunity to do what I could do. So I wanted that. I didn't want to have to live with that for the next 20 years. Kind of have that what if. What if I did this better? What if I did that better? So for me, I wanted to give myself that chance, and there was nobody else that can make that choice but me. So I chose that I wanted to come back, and I'll never forget the meeting I had with my coach, and he just said, we're doing it my way, and that is the only way that we can do it. And at that point, I had to just say, all right, fine, let's do it. And not complain, not argue, not talk back. I was really good at all of those things. But just trust the process. And you know, I think going through that from, you know, coming back in 2014 and enjoying the process again, I felt like a high school kid. And I was having fun. And I think that was the best part of that journey. You know, climbing back up to the mountain the mountaintop is really easy. Staying up there is even harder.
Yeah.
So that climb and that journey was easy because I wanted it so bad, but it was so enjoyable. And being able to finish how I wanted, you know, come back and four-peat the 200 IM, win the 200 fly, win a couple relays, but have my family there, my firstborn son, my wife. Those are moments and memories that I will have forever, and those are some of my proudest memories. So throughout my life, I had the opportunity to do anything and everything, and for me, I wanted to take every opportunity that I could to be the best athlete that I could be, because everything that I was giving up, I had the chance to do when I was done. You know, yeah, I missed out on a few dances or, you know, dates, movies, this, that, and the other, but I had opportunities that nobody else ever had. And for me, I'll give up anything to do that. So it was easy for me to give that stuff up because, you know, I mean, now, and it's actually kind of comical. I feel like that Boomer and Beckett and I are probably learning some of the same things at this very time because, you know, like for me, like I was in the pool swimming all the time, right? I said before, eat, sleep, and swim. That was my job. That was my life. So, you know, I didn't have the chance to have the experiences through the teenage years and on that other kids had. So I'm experiencing some of that stuff now and learning some of the stuff now that I probably should have learned or could have learned at a younger age.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. You know, like it's enjoyable for me, and honestly, it's challenging for me too. But I think the biggest thing that I've really learned with kids is I've learned the definition of patience a little bit more.
Yeah.
They're always testing my patience, and they know how to press my buttons better than any human out there. So it's a cool process. Try to be their own person. You know, like for me, like I was never trying to be the next Mark Spitz. I was trying to be the first Michael Phelps, and that was my goal. So, you know, I think when you try to be somebody else, it's almost impossible to be somebody else. So, you know, it's just trying to be the best you that you can possibly be. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, everyone used the comparison for me and Spitz for how many years, and then that was never the goal of the dream. I didn't even know who Mark Spitz was when somebody first asked me. You know, so it's like, and not because I don't know my history, but that wasn't what I was trying to chase. I was trying to do something to be the first. I was trying to be the first person to ever do something in that sport, or the first person to ever do something at the Olympics of that magnitude. So, you know, my goals were my personal goals, and nobody else is going to stand in the way. I'm my worst critic, so I mean, I'll say, yeah, I'm the hardest on myself out of any people in the world. So, I mean, but I will say I had some of the greatest competitors in the water that really did push me. I mean, you think about it, I swam with Lochte for basically my whole career, and we were 1-2 or 1-3 basically every single race. So, you know, I was competing with the best of the best, and I had them basically next to me every day. Basically broke it down to, you know, take 5 things and work on those 5 things. Do those really well for a month. After that month, it's going to become a habit, right? So then you can take on 5 or 10 other things. And once you've done that, you can do 5 or 10 other things. And before too long, you're ready to go. You got everything that you need to be the best that you can possibly be. So I think it's the small steps. You know, Rome, the famous saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. I hate hearing that, but it's so true. Because you can't expect something overnight. You have to go through the process of it. And that's the biggest thing. You know, I can't jump out of bed tomorrow and say I want to break the world record in the 200 IM. No, I have to do the small pieces to be able to get to that goal. So I think it's really taking a step backwards and understanding what you want, and then figuring out a plan on how you're going to get there. You know, my motto throughout my whole career was dream, plan, reach. Figure out a dream, plan on how you're going to get there, and reach for it. If it doesn't go well, you go back to the drawing board, figure out a different plan.
5 rules. And everything that I did, I always used those 5 rules, and those 5 rules helped me to become successful in various different areas. And I believe that those rules can be applied to almost anyone and everyone. You don't need to be a bodybuilding champion, you don't need to want to be a governor of California or to be an action hero or anything like that. If you want to excel in whatever you do, those rules are for you. It's that simple. Now I have to tell you right off the top that I always was very intense. As a kid already, I was very intense and I was very hungry. I always wanted to be the best. I always wanted to be number one. I always wanted to get to the top. I never believed in just getting by. Now, I have nothing against people that just want to get by, because I think there are many roads to happiness, but I think that we all here like to be successful and we are driven. So that's why those rules apply to you. So my first rule is find your vision and follow it. You see, I think it's the most important thing that we have a very clear vision of where we go. A goal, where do we go? Because you can have the best ship in the world. You can have the best cruise liner, but if the captain does not know where to go, that ship will drift around the world and out there at sea and will never end up anywhere. And this is exactly the way it is in real life. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have a vision, you just drift around and you're not going to be happy. This is why it is so important to have that vision. Now, I created that vision in Austria because I grew up after the Second World War. Austria, right along with Germany, lost the Second World War, thank God. And the problem was that everyone was so depressed because they lost the war that there was alcoholism everywhere. There was, of course, depression. There was a terrible economic situation. There was famine. There was starvation and all of those things. And also it was kind of a little place and narrow. I felt I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to escape. And I couldn't see myself really to work there and to stay there, to work in a factory or to work on a farm, or to even to follow my father's footsteps and to become a police officer. I couldn't see that either. As a matter of fact, that's what my parents wanted me to do. They wanted me to become a police officer and to marry a girl by the name of Heidi and to have a bunch of children and to run around like the Von Trapp family in The Sound of Music. But that's not what I saw. This was the vision of my parents, but not mine. And luckily, one day in school, I watched a documentary about America. And I found myself, I knew exactly that is where I wanted to end up. I wanted to be in America. Everything that I saw in the documentary, I just loved. Everything was so big. I remember the tall skyscrapers, the monstrous bridges, the giant freeways filled with beautiful cars, the huge jetliners, movie stars, Muscle Beach, and all of those things. I could not wait to get there. The question was just, how do I get there? How do I get to America? I mean, this was not a common thing to do way back in the 50s. No one had the money to travel or anything. But one day I was fortunate enough to see a magazine. And that magazine showed me the path to America. And it was a bodybuilding magazine. And on the cover was this very muscular guy that was standing there like Hercules with a Hercules outfit. His name was Reg Park. This Reg Park was on that cover, and I remember the cover said, Mr. Universe becomes Hercules star. I read the article as fast as I could, learning about how he grew up in Leeds in England, poor, and how he trained 5 hours a day, every single day, and trained and trained and trained and lifted weights, and then he finally became Mr. Great Britain. And then he became Mr. Universe. And then he won a second Mr. Universe title and a third Mr. Universe title. And then all of a sudden he landed in Rome in Cinecittà doing Hercules movies. And there he made millions of dollars, and this money he took and bought himself a gymnasium chain in South Africa. And he became a successful gymnasium owner. And as I read, I became more and more certain about my own future. As I read this story, I was so excited, so interested. I knew exactly that I wanted to become another Reg Park. I know he laid out the blueprint for my life, basically. I could see myself, I could visualize myself clearly to be a champion, on that same stage where he won the Mr. Universe, and then to move to America, then get into movies, and then become rich and famous. I had that vision very clearly laid out. I was so happy that I knew exactly where I was going. From that moment on, everything that I did, no matter how hard I had to work or how much I had to struggle, it didn't matter. It was a wonderful joyride because I knew what the purpose was and I found my passion. The simple truth is, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a goal, if you don't see your future laid out in front of you, you're just floating around without a purpose. And I think that the numbers speak for themselves. This is why so many people around the world are unhappy with their jobs. I mean, in America, 74% of the people hate their job and would like to change jobs. But think about that. That means that only a quarter of the Americans love their life's work. I mean, that is a very depressing statistic. I always smiled when I worked, no matter how hard I worked. I always had a great time, no matter what I did. It didn't matter if it was in bodybuilding, or if it was in the movies, or if it was as governor. I remember in the pumping iron days, people ask me in the gym all the time, why are you smiling all the time? Why are you so happy? You have to lift 50 tons of weights. You have to train 5 hours a day. I mean, I look at the other bodybuilders' faces and lifters' faces, and they look kind of depressing. They look sour. They're miserable that they have to lift weights. You don't look miserable, you look happy. And I tell them always, I say, I smile because I know exactly that every rep that I do, that every set that I do, every weight that I lift, I get one step closer to turning that vision of mine into reality and becoming that Mr. Universe. I could not wait to lift another 500 pounds in the squats. I could not wait to do another 1,000 sit-ups. I could not wait to do bench press, more bench press and more curls until I couldn't move my arms anymore. Because I knew that every rep got me closer to standing on that stage as a champion. As a matter of fact, when I lifted weights, I didn't really feel like I was lifting weights. I felt like I was lifting a trophy over my head each time I lifted. And to have all those bodybuilders around me and thousands of people screaming. And I tell you that this vision didn't just help me in bodybuilding, it helped me with everything, like I said. I remember in the movie business, there was many times stunts that I had to do where I got hurt, where I was in pain, in agony, and had to do it over and over again. I remember one incident specifically on Conan the Barbarian. There I was crawling on all four, on rocks, over rocks and gravel, holding my sword right in front of me. And as I was crawling, the camera followed me, and it was around 30 feet that I crawl on those rocks and this gravel. And eventually, after 10 takes, my elbows and my knees started bleeding and hurting. And the director came to me sheepishly and said to me, he says, do you mind if we do another take? I need a close-up of you. And I said to him, no, I don't mind at all. I said, go and do as many takes as you want. He says, no, I don't want to do that because I know you're in pain, you're bleeding. I said, no, I don't feel any pain. I said, the only thing I see is the finished scene. I see the finished scene of me crawling on all four with my sword in the front, crawling up and sneaking up behind Thulsa Doom, the main villain of the Conan movie that killed my parents, and rising up behind him and cutting his head off. That's what I see. So this is why, because I visualized that scene, this is why I did not feel that pain. I did not care if I was bleeding on my knees because I knew that pain is temporary, but the film is permanent. And I explained that to the director, so this is why I try to tell you, always discover your vision, and the rest will follow. Now my second rule is never ever think small. If you're going to accomplish anything, you have to think big. You have to go and shoot for the stars. The biggest challenge most people have is because they think small. And the reason why people think small and why they choose small little goals is because they're afraid to fail. They know that if you shoot for a big goal, then the chances of failing are very high. And they're afraid of failing. It's one of the most common things why people are frozen and why they can't make a move in life, because they're scared of failing. I say to myself, hey, I'm not worried about failing because that's part of life. You're not going to go and win everything. And how far can you fall? Look at this. This is the ground. That's as far as I can fall. And you know something? that the only time you really consider the failure is if you fall and you don't get up. But if you get up, you never consider the failure. So I never considered myself a failure. I always considered myself a winner, even though I fell every so often. But I always got up and I always moved forward. This is the important thing. I never had any patience, of course, for thinking small, because in German we have a saying, wenn schon, denn schon. And that means that if you do something, then go all out and do it well. And this was not just the case in bodybuilding. I didn't just want to be a bodybuilding champion. I wanted to be the greatest bodybuilder of all times. I wanted to have the most muscle, the most muscle of all times, the most definition. I wanted to win the most trophies, the most world championship titles. I just wanted to be the best. And the same is also in movies. I didn't just think about being in movies. No, I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to have above the title billing. I wanted to become the highest paid entertainer. I basically wanted to be another John Wayne. What's wrong with that? And then the same is in politics. I didn't just want to go and be in politics and enter a race for city council. I mean, let's be honest. Does that sound right? Schwarzenegger, city council? No, come on. Not even Schwarzenegger and mayor. No, it had to be Schwarzenegger running for governor. But not just any governor, but governor of the greatest state in the United States, of California. That was the important thing. So remember, never think small, think big. My third rule is ignore the naysayers. I think it is natural that when you have a big vision and big dreams and you have big goals, that people are going to say around you, I don't think it can be done. I think it's impossible. Or no. I tell you, I heard this all the time, but I want to tell you, don't ever let them stop you from dreaming and from shooting for the big goal. Because eliminate just simply those words, no, impossible, and it can't be done. I mean, in each one of my careers, when someone said it's impossible, I heard it's possible. When someone said it can't be done, I heard it can be done. And when someone said no, then I heard loud and clear, yes. So this is what I believed in. I am a big believer of what Nelson Mandela said. He said it always seems to be impossible and still someone does it. And that's exactly what it is. And I wanted to be that one that does it. I wanted to break the new records, and I wanted to do something that no one else has ever done. So I think that's what you need to do. Don't ever be worried about that someone hasn't done it. Just think about how many times my career would have stopped. My career would have ended if I would have listened to the naysayers. I mean, it started right away when I was 15 years old, and I became a bodybuilder. Right off the top, when I said, I want to be a world champion in bodybuilding, I want to be Mr. Universe. They immediately said, are you crazy? You're in Austria. In Austria, you can become a ski champion or a bicycle champion or something like that, but bodybuilding is an American sport. Forget about it. That's nuts. Then when I wanted to move to America, they said again, that's impossible. You will never be able to do that. You have no money. You're all by yourself. And then when I wanted to go into show business, after I won 13 world championship titles in bodybuilding, I said, I want to be like Reg Park. I want to be a Hercules. I want to get into movies. Well, I tell you, when I met those agents and managers and studio executives, their reaction was, oh, Arnold, that is so funny. You want to be what, a leading man? Oh, come on. I mean, look, first of all, let's start with your body. Look at your body. I mean, you're overdeveloped. You're gigantic. You're like a monster. Are you kidding me? Do you know what the new thing, the new trend is? It's little guys like Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Woody Allen. Those are the new sex symbols. Don't you get it? And then your accent, oh, it gives me the chills just listening to your German bullshit. Come on now. I mean, oh God. I mean, it's like, it's scary when you talk. It's unbelievable. I mean, have you ever, Arnold, I mean, be serious, have you ever seen an international movie star with a German accent? It doesn't happen. Forget about that. And then you name, what is it, Schwarzen, Schnitzel or something like that? Yeah, I can see that name already up there on the billboard. Yes, and people are going to storm the theater and the movie houses because Schwarzen Schnitzel is starring in a movie. Oh yeah, I can see that already. So that's what they said. They said to me, it says, look, Forget about it, you're a nice guy. I mean, you're a bodybuilding champion. Why don't you open up a gymnasium or a health food store or something like that? We can help you with that. And then we get you on the side some little parts, like maybe playing a bouncer. I mean, with your body, perfect. Or maybe a wrestler. I have a good idea with your accent, a Nazi officer. Now that's really great for you. I call my buddies over at Hogan's Heroes. I mean, they would probably use someone like you. So that's what they said. Imagine that. Everywhere I turned, they said, no, it won't happen, it's not going to happen, and forget about it. Luckily, I did not listen. I did not listen because I knew if I worked hard enough and if I worked as hard as I did in bodybuilding, 5-6 hours a day, that I will make it, that I could prove them wrong. And I started working very hard. I started taking acting classes, English classes, speech classes, dialogue classes, even accent removal classes. I ran around all day saying lines like, a fine wine grows on a vine. Because you see, we Austrians and Germans have a difficult time with the V and with the W and with the F, we get it all mixed up. So it was a fine wine grows on a vine. Or the sink is made out of zinc. And all those kind of lines. I said over and over, and you know something? All of a sudden, I got a little break. In the early 70s, I remember, all of a sudden, I got a TV show, a little part, then another little part. And then all of a sudden, I got a phone call from Lucille Ball to be in her special Happy Anniversary and Goodbye, which was with Art Carney. I had this 6-minute scene as an Italian masseur. Now, most people don't know the difference between an Italian accent and the German accent, so I got away with my German accent. But I played this Italian masseur, and I was so delighted. And then right after that, I got a guest starring role in Streets of San Francisco with Michael Douglas and Carl Malden, and then Pumping On and Stay Hungry. And then, of course, I landed the big role of Conan the Barbarian. So finally, I got the big break. And you know what was so interesting about it was that as soon as we were finished with the Conan movie, we were out there on a promotion tour, and the director said at the press conference, the director is John Milius, he said, if we wouldn't have had Schwarzenegger with those muscles, we would have had to build one. Now think about that. Before it was this huge obstacle to have this body, and all of a sudden the director says, if we wouldn't have had Schwarzenegger with his body, we would have had to build one. Now what a turnaround. And then when I did Terminator, James Cameron said, which was really great, he said the I'll be back line became one of the most famous movie lines in history because of Arnold's crazy accent, because he sounded like a machine when he talked. So as you see, everything that the naysayers said was a liability became an asset. And the same was also in my political career. When I ran for governor, they immediately said, I shouldn't do it, it is a big mistake, it won't happen, I will lose, and all of those kind of things. And the rest, of course, is history. The bottom line is, if I would have listened to the naysayers, my career would have ended when I was 15 years old. I would be still yodeling in Austria in the Alps, and I would not be talking here today to you. And the reason why I'm here today and talking to you is because I did not listen to you can't, or it's impossible, or no. So I just recommend to you very strongly, ignore the naysayers. My fourth rule is, work your ass off. Nobody ever stumbled upon success by accident, except maybe the guy who found gold in California. But don't ever think that you can be that guy. I mean, you never want to fail because you didn't work hard enough. I always believed no stone unturned. Work your butt off. That's what I always believed. No matter what you do, work, work, work. I remember Muhammad Ali, one of my great heroes, had a great line in the 70s when he was asked, how many sit-ups do you do? He said, I don't know, because I start counting only when it starts burning. When it starts burning, that's when it starts counting. You see, that's what makes you a champion. It doesn't matter in what area you're in. No pain, no gain. I mean, it drives me absolutely nuts when people say, I don't have time to work out. Have you heard that many times? I don't have time to work out, or I have worked so hard all day, I'm tired, I cannot work out anymore, or I cannot read another book, or I cannot improve myself, or I don't have time, or I work so hard that I cannot really improve my business, or I cannot grow as a person, or any of those things. What the hell are we talking about here? I mean, the day is 24 hours. You sleep 6 hours, so you have 18 hours left. I mean, I know there's some of you out there that say, well, wait a minute, I sleep actually 8 hours, but that's just sleep faster, okay? Listen, when I came to the United States, I remember that I trained 5 hours a day, every day, and I was managing a construction business, and I was a bricklayer, and I went to college also, and I took acting classes from 8 o'clock at night to 12 o'clock midnight. All of that in one day. Every day I did that. I did not worry about it. I knew that I had 24 hours and I didn't want to waste one single hour, because I believe of what Ted Turner said, who is one of the great entrepreneurs who started CNN and so on. He said, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise. So that's what I believe. Just remember, you can't climb that ladder of success with your hands in your pockets. You must work your ass off. It's that simple. And my fifth and last rule is, don't just take. Give something back. Leave your mark on the world. I believe that we all have an obligation to do something for our community, something for our state, something for our country. We must serve a cause that is greater than ourselves, because we all know that in the end we will be judged not by how much we made, but by how much we give. Ever since America greeted me with open arms, I've had this sense of responsibility, and I felt obligated to give something back to America. Eventually, the joy of giving back was so great that I decided to become a public servant full-time and to turn my back, actually, and walk away from my career as an actor. After I finished promoting Terminator 3, I jumped into the race, into the governor's race in California, and I ran for governor. And even though my friends advised me not to do that, they said, are you crazy, Arnold? Don't you understand that you would lose now this $20, $30 million a movie that you're getting paid? And they will only pay you $178,000 as governor a year? Well, I didn't care, because I knew that all the money that I've made and to be in that position in the first place to make this money is because of America. It was time to give something back. So I became governor, and I didn't even take the $178,000. I gave it back to the taxpayers, because it was petty cash. It's the last thing I needed. And I can tell you that those 7 years were the most exciting and the most rewarding and the most gratifying years of my life. To work all day long, to solve problems and to serve the people was absolutely heaven. It was the best job I've ever had. That I was very fortunate that I had great heroes. I had great heroes that I could look up to, and I mentioned two of them, Muhammad Ali and Sergeant Shriver, my father-in-law. But there's other great heroes like Gorbachev, Reagan, Mandela, great leaders like Mother Teresa, Chancellor Kohl, and Churchill, and the list goes on and on. I mean, those people had such an impact on the world. Single-handedly, they've changed the world. I mean, if you think about just Gorbachev, I mean, this man, every time I meet him, I'm in awe. I mean, he grew up under communism, and he rose from the bottom of the ranks straight up to the top. He became president of the Soviet Union, one of the most powerful people in the world. And he was the leader of the Communist Party. And when he was in the top position, he realized that the system was broken. Now, what do you do when you're the top leader of the Communist Party and you realize that the system, that communism, doesn't work? Well, you know what he did? He dismantled communism. Think about the courage that takes. I mean, the guts that it takes to do that. Think about that Gorbachev completely transformed his country with glasnost to give his people for the first time freedom. And then through perestroika, by reforming Russia's economy. He didn't wait for the next president. He didn't complain. He simply said, if not me, who? And if not now, when? So I feel very strongly all of us need to have and embrace that kind of a spirit. We all can create change, whether it is in our neighborhood or in our local schools or in our country. It can be big, but it can also be as little as just going to a school kid that has problems reading and teaching that kids how to read or how to do math. We don't have to just work on me. We should also work on we. Not just me, but also we. Remember that. To lead a truly full life, you must give back. You must leave the world a better place than you found it. Because the bottom line is, it is up to us. I mean, those rules that I've given you are important rules, but giving back is one of the most important rules. I guarantee you that if you follow all of those rules, you will have many victories to celebrate. And you will leave, your work, and you will have extraordinary kind of a record, and you will leave a legacy behind that you can be proud of. So I want you to remember those rules. Have a vision. Think big. Ignore the naysayers. Work your ass off and give back and change the world. Because if not us, who? If not now, when?